Welcome back, everyone, to another One Up XP Show podcast. And today I'm joined by my dream school, the University of Michigan. When I was 8 years old, I wanted to play hockey. I wanted to go to Michigan. And I played hockey, but I did not go to Michigan. But we will show you who we have from Michigan to represent their esports program right after the intro. Here we go. I love the intro. And with me, yes, I told you I'd tell you who we brought from Michigan, Cybbi Barton, the Assistant Director of Esports and Intramural Programs. Thank you for joining me, Cybbi.
What's up, Michael? Thank you for having me. I'm really happy to be here.
Yeah, thank you for joining me. And like I said, you know, it was always my dream to be in Maize and Blue. So I represent the Maize and Blue now, but not as an alumni, but as a fan. And
the support is the same, you know?
It is. It really is. But I do love that Michigan has an esports program, and you guys aren't too old into the esports program, but give me a little background on first you and then how it got started with esports there at Michigan.
Okay. I'm not old either, but you know, I've been around for a while. So I'm originally from Texas and have been playing video games my whole life. I had an older brother, so anytime he did something, I had to do it, but I had to do it better. So
nailed it.
Video games was one of the big things, like us playing Super Smash Brothers, like GoldenEye, all of the games around that era. So yeah, and then continued to play video games forever, and now I do it for a career, which
that's so awesome.
It's insane,
so awesome.
Right?
Yeah.
Like it's so cool. So now I get to work with students that have not only played video games their whole life, but a lot of them are really good and they compete.
Right.
And so being able to support them and also support the people like me, like I like playing games. Am I super good? Not yet. But I like to play, and that's how I meet friends. And so I love that support that we have for that.
Perfect. I mean, that's it. I think that was my sister's excuse too. Cause I'm the oldest of three. Okay. And my middle sister, Samantha, she's 3.5 years younger than I am, but I always wanted her to play video games with me. So we'd play Mario Brothers, but I would coax her into dying so I could get another turn. And she would do it, you know, she would do it. But that's her support for me. She understood I wanted to play more. So she would jump down a hole just so I could play. Or I was like, Sam, let me show you how to do it. And then I would actually take over Luigi and like finish the level for her. And she's like, you did it. She's like, no, you did it.
We
did it together. So what's the background on Michigan Esports? You guys aren't that old, but how long, when did Michigan Esports start?
Yeah, well, the gaming population and community on campus has been around for a long time. Yeah. So the official sponsorship for them to be able to call themselves the University of Michigan didn't start until a year and a half ago, 2 years ago.
Okay.
So but they lived and breathed. They were doing all of the cool stuff like LANs and competition and everything that we do now. But they were doing it without any support except each other. Yep. So yeah, our department, we do a really great job of paying attention to trends and what are students wanting or what experiences do they want to have while they're on campus.
Right.
And they identified that esports was one of them. So the role that I had was split between esports and club sports, which is more of a traditional sports model, but both really student-run organizations. And they brought me in and said, "Hey, we want to do esports. You're the expert. We're not yet, so get us there." Right. So I've had an insane, crazy journey with like everything that's happening in the world, but also building this program of what it is now. But a lot of it has come from the work of the students that are involved with the organization right now and like years and years of history. Right. They did a great job of preparing themselves to be in this position now where there's just a different way of life now. They have support administratively. There's a lot of things, especially at the University of Michigan, that support their mission. Right. So my job is to advocate for them and provide that vision of, okay, I can see a little bit more of the bigger picture. the higher level projects and assessment and things like that. But y'all like have fun,
make friends, have fun.
Yeah. And so, yeah, it's constantly growing, as we know, in esports, and things are changing every single day. But we have a really incredible group of students, which I'm sure every campus can say that.
Well, the thing is, like, I looked at the background. I don't want to seem creeperish here or anything, but I looked into Cybbi's LinkedIn, and I believe it said 120 students in the program right now.
At least. Yeah, that's just competition only. So we support. Man. Yeah, I know. It's a lot to keep track of.
I think that might be the biggest program that I've talked to, or amount of kids in one program that I've talked to. I mean, that is a lot for competition. 120 kids. Yeah. And to think that's that's a collegiate sport. 120 kids. I mean, the football team doesn't even carry that many. And they carry like 80 kids, but I digress, but I'm just saying, like, the doors are open there. And the thing I've always loved, and it's not just Michigan in general, a lot of these colleges, but they're opening the opportunity to something new. They're being forward and getting in front of esports for the most part. It's starting to blossom, and I love that Michigan jumped on board, said, hey, here's the support, do this, you can do that, and it's like all the kids are coming in. 120 blew my mind, though. That is awesome. I love to see it. And don't get me wrong, I know Michigan is a huge school, but 120 kids in the program competing is massive.
It is. You're not wrong.
No, that is awesome. So that is, I mean, I love to see it, and I love to see that Michigan was open arms, and they said, yeah, here you go, here's the support. And I love the fact that you've built this into what it has become. And I will say, I told this to Cybbi earlier, because the first taste of Michigan that I had was against Northwoods, who we had Cody on for one of our first podcasts. And, I got the news from a lot of people that Northwood steamrolls a lot of people. Michigan was leading early on in the first game, and I was like, oh, Michigan's knocking. And then Northwood decided to hit a different gear. But you guys were there. You were there. And I know you'll be there. You'll be there in a matter of time. But give me some of the achievements over the years. Obviously, you said that you stepped into this role, and you just, like I mentioned, you have 120 kids in the programs. But what are some of the achievements that U of M has for their esports program so far?
Yeah, I think competitively, there's highlights with all of our different titles that we compete in. We compete in 10 titles. So that kind of feeds into the how many students we have with that. So the competition piece is all over the board. We have highlights competitively all throughout all of our different games. We added a Smite team this past year, and they've done really well. Good. So it's always nice to be a part of a team that wins, right? But another piece that I think is really crucial, and it's awesome for me as an administrator to see, but our students are involved in a lot of different areas of the esport ecosystem that we know, right? So like the broadcasting piece, the marketing piece, and the engagement that they are seeing across the board with our Twitch or just our social media in general is climbing steadily. And that's really impressive, knowing that the students are doing this, and we're providing resources, but it's really a lot of their work. So I see that as an achievement in that as well. And then we focus a lot on not only just saying like DEI stuff, right? Like anybody can say that. What matters to me is action. How are we taking action steps towards our DEI efforts? And we have a couple of people in our organization dedicated towards that work, which is awesome, because I think a lot of the time those efforts fall on the shoulders of the administrators, which makes sense. Yeah. But why not get the students involved with that too, right? And have them a part of that and feel included into the mission and prepare them, because that's going to be a part of their job, or like after they graduate, it'll be a part of their life in some way. So correct. I find that an achievement as well.
Yeah. I mean, it is an achievement. You're creating better human beings in the grand scheme of things. I mean, you're step forward. They're athletes before, or they're students before athletes, right? And then you're also preparing them for real life. I mean, while you're in college, you're preparing for real life, but you're also playing video games. Now, if you step out in the real world, you might not be playing video games, but you're prepped for life now with a lot of the things that not only you, but Michigan and many campuses have prepared them for. Exactly. And a lot of the esports programs that I have run into so far that I've talked to really have it out to set and get those kids ready for that first step. Because you know what? yeah, if you're playing the sticks or the mouse and keyboard, your time's not going to be very long that you could be a pro athlete in esports. I mean, let's be realistic. But if you have a background or a degree in whatever you want for esports, or whatever degree you have in, you need to be prepared to use that degree. And that's where, you know, the life aspects come into it. And you guys are preparing them for that. And I mean, to be honest with you, stepping out of college into the real world, it's always going to be a shock to a system of some sort. I mean, let's just be real. Because when I was at college, I mean, anybody who goes to college, you feel kind of secure in your bubble. And then when you step out of that bubble, it's like, what do I do now? So prep is huge in that. So you said you have 10 game titles that you're focusing on. What are those titles that you have? I know I have right now in the bottom corner here playing is you guys versus Western Michigan in CSGO. So I'm assuming that's one of your titles. But what are some of the titles that you guys are carrying right now competitively?
We got League of Legends, Valorant, Rocket League, Smite, Overwatch, CSGO, Hearthstone.
Oh, nice.
There's 2 other ones that I'm forgetting, and that I practice this all the time, but we've had a lot of changes.
Oh, that's totally fine. I mean, once you get above like 5 or 6, it starts to get tough to remember all the titles.
Yeah, StarCraft 2. Okay, like I'm getting them now. You know, I should just like open.
Wait, what was that one?
StarCraft 2.
Tarkov 2?
StarCraft.
Oh, StarCraft. I thought you said Tarkov. I was like, you guys have a Tarkov program?
I wish.
I do too.
Incredible.
Sign me up. I'm coming to grad school. That would be awesome.
And then Rainbow Six.
Rainbow Six. There you go.
That's the 10th one.
Siege is always a big esports program. I agree. Yeah. So,
hopefully our 6 team. I'm sorry. I never would forget y'all.
No, not at all. It's just, you know, there's a lot of names to remember. There's 120 kids. But so you have those games. Are you open to carrying any more? Are there people bringing more game titles to you? How do you kind of maneuver through that aspect?
Yeah, that's a great question. We have a process of which, if there is a game that's popular and our students are wanting to play it and create a team, there's a list of prereqs that they have to meet. So if there's a league or if they're competing already, and how many people is it engaging? So,
so I can't bring Tarkov to Michigan.
If you can meet the standards, you can do whatever you want.
I'm on it.
But it's an application process. So, it will just depend, right? Like we see games get really popular and then they lose steam or over time. So that's why that is built into place. Is we need to assess this almost like on a semesterly basis. If this is engaging enough students to make it worth our resources and our time and things like that. So right now, 10 feels okay to me. I would always love to add more games, but I think it comes down a lot to like the resources that we have and what our program is right now. And hopefully as it continues to grow, we can add more games to that. But I think 10 is the magic number for right now.
I don't know about this, but how much staff do you have for everything that goes on there?
You're looking at her, professional.
Yeah.
That's
she
right.
does it herself. Nails
professional staff wise is me.
Okay.
But I have 2 student coordinators who will help with a lot of the administrative things that I have to do. But yeah.
Can the students kind of step into any coaching roles possibly? Or is that something like, because say there's a game that you might not have a huge background in, but there's a kid that might not have the best playing abilities, but is a really good coach, which we run into everywhere in traditional sports and esports. Like some might not be able to play it, but they know how to strategically play it in their mind way better than some of the players. So is it possible that some of the kids might step into a coaching role?
Absolutely. Yeah. We have that right now as a way to be a resource in some capacity in that coaching role, because it is so important. And at this point, that's what we got. When you ask me like, hey, Cybbi, what does this program look like in 5-10 years? That changes a little bit.
That's actually the next thing where I was going to say, what are the goals for you in Michigan here in the next 5 to 10 years? I mean, because it's the prerequisite, resume question. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? But with esports being the way that it is and really coming to life here in the last few years, it's really going to change dramatically. I mean, we're in the wild, wild west when it comes to esports. There's no governing body. We're just kind of doing it on our own right now for the most part. But where do you see, what are the goals for Michigan in the next 5 to 10 years and yourself?
Yeah, I I think right now, what's unique about Michigan is like we have a lot of great programs in the state of Michigan. So I think what's really important for me is to continue to expand our brand of, hey, we're the University of Michigan Esports. We're relatively new, like, to this title. So continuing that and that momentum, I think, is really important for us moving forward. I would love to see where we can have coaches and we can have all of the resources that make sense for a successful team, right? Even like traditional sports, there's a lot of similarities there. So seeing that not only impact our esports program, but how it can impact our whole department within rec sports, which is a lot of different other programs that are involved with that have some similarities. So not only advancing our program, but how are we pulling everybody else along too?
Right.
And I think competitively continuing to be good, and as more resources come our way, we are able to recruit better players and compete well and all of that great stuff. I'm also looking into, okay, when we talk about gaming, that could mean so many other avenues that we're not even touching right now. So like, I just saw a trailer for like a new cozy game, and I'm like, this is off the hook. Like, I would love to like just play this game with somebody, or like have somebody to talk about. So I think
content creation.
Yeah, right. Like there's so many opportunities for what gaming could be. Like mobile gaming is really huge in other areas of the world, and even here. And even like, let's throw it old school. Let's like board games, like
tabletop games. That's huge. Actually, there's a whole Twitch thing for that, because a lot of people love to sit down and play those games, and people found out, you can stream them. So why not? I mean, to be honest with you, when I was growing up, some of the best games that me and my sister ever played were the 12-hour-long Monopoly games that somebody would rage and quit and just declare bankruptcy. But it made for great entertainment. And the thing is, if you can capture that, put that lightning in a bottle and stream it, I mean, you can make great free content that somebody can enjoy for that. And that is an avenue. You are 100% correct when you say that there's a million different avenues for esports, because there are. And I've traveled a lot of them over the last 6 years. And it's just like, I never knew this was a thing. So I go down that avenue and it's great. And then I take a right down another avenue. I was like, whoa, what is this? It's like, it's like you're in Minecraft and the map is completely gray and you're just finding things as you go. And it's like, wow, check out my path. It's all squiggly, but there was some great things along the way. Like, I never envisioned me ever being a pro in some game. And I was pro in Fortnite for a year. And then, they started turbo building, and kids that were 14, 15, and 16, they're just cranking 90s on me. I got to hang up the controller. I still enjoy it, but I'm definitely not a pro. But it's just like, I didn't know what an organization was. Esports wasn't a thing when I was in college. Otherwise, I guarantee you my avenues would have changed from there. So it's just like, man. But it's crazy, everything that is blowing up right now, and I'm glad Michigan is on the forefront of it and doing it well, and doing it well with you, Cybbi. So so the questions here, we're getting into the meat now. What perks, if any, does Michigan offer the esports-minded students? It doesn't have to necessarily just be, the kids on the sticks or the keyboards, but what perks do you offer, like maybe casters in mind, or game developers? Are there, scholarships or anything that kids can look into when coming to Michigan for esports?
Yeah. So right now we don't have scholarships or any type of support in that way. It's not a no forever. We'll see what happens. But,
I mean, you all start somewhere.
True. Right. But one really cool thing that isn't necessarily affiliated with our program right now, but the School of Information will have an esports minor for people to come here and study esports. Right. So that is really exciting, because we know it's on campus and it's with the University of Michigan. It's not necessarily UMich Esports, but the impact is going to be beneficial to us in some capacity. So that involvement, I think, will be really, really cool. And I think another part of it too is, we know the University of Michigan, my students here are academic focused. That is the reason they're here. Esports is a cherry on top. So being able to have that as a priority, your academics, but also this program that is continually growing. And with my vision, it's like we were talking about earlier, like, how am I getting students involved in roles that will benefit them in the future after they graduate, no matter what it is, if it's more school, if it's a job, or if it's something completely different. Our department does an incredible job of setting up our students up for success And I think that's not necessarily unique to Michigan, but every person from myself to the president of the university knows the impact of esports.
Oh yeah.
And the support is there, which is awesome.
Which is great. I mean, when you have the backing of the higher ups and the support of people, example for me is when I introduced this to 9 and 10 and they're like, what is this? Our news station was like, what are you talking about? I was like, I showed them everything that I could possibly show them about esports, and they're like, whoa, run with it. And everybody's behind me cheering and going, yeah, go, support. We support you. But the problem is they just don't know how to support or help just yet, because, you know, I'm basically the only one that knows anything about it, but doing all the stuff for it. But they're like, yeah, go. And it's like, thank you for the support. I appreciate it. Yeah. But it is always good to have the support from the people up top, especially at Michigan, which you are exactly correct. Michigan is Michigan for a reason. Right. The academics are top-notch, top-tier, best in the world, and the kids that are coming obviously know that they're students first, but when you can do the esports thing, obviously, why not? So, I mean, it will come in time where you guys, you know, will be able to have the scholarships or will be able to, you know, have the backing for more of that in the future, but it's just not there at the moment. But again, I don't even like saying it's in its infancy. It's literally still baking. It will be out to the world more here shortly, but it's literally still not. It's not even in its infancy. So I mean, we have a long way to go with esports. How it will develop, we don't know, but we know it's something special. How do your kids try out or get involved in the esports there in Michigan?
Yeah, there's all of our different titles, the 10 that we support competitively. They have various tryout schedules and what that looks like. It's really competitive. And there's a lot of games that I don't know what competitive looks like. Like, tell me more. And that's where my students are like, okay, look for this. This is like, you know. So that is part of the process. And getting involved with the organization, the program on its own is like, just come to our Discord and it's open to you. The way to get involved is pretty easy from that standpoint. And there's just a lot of just random things that are going on, which is really cool because it builds on that community. But we also have community events that happen pretty sporadically now that like COVID's kind of thrown a wrench in everything, but that's where you find out all the information. We have a lot of high school students that come to our Discord to like find out more about each specific game, which is really, really cool. And to have that dynamic too of just potentially recruiting more people to come to the University of Michigan, but also to be a part of our program. Yeah.
I mean, when you say esports, especially when you dive into Discord or anything like Twitch, obviously you're going to have a lot of kids starting to dive in and asking questions and saying, oh, how do I get here? Because to be honest with you, it's almost self-promotion. When you start up a Discord, obviously they know it's going to be about gaming of some sort, but when you see Michigan start a Discord, it's like, oh, Michigan, gaming. Hey, what's going on here? So we asked this earlier, but I want to know if there's a set number that Cybbi has set on here. But we know that you said there was at least 120 kids in the competition bracket, but is there a set number that you can carry, that you want to carry, or that you're stuck on right now?
Yeah, it depends title to title too of how many teams we have within that title. So it could look like that depending on just the interest and if it makes sense. As far as, you know, the program itself, it's how can we provide an opportunity for someone to be involved in some capacity? So that's what, like I was talking about earlier, of how can we create like more opportunities for tabletop gaming or you know what I mean? So that is a part of our mission too, is how are we providing opportunities for our students to find their place on a campus that there's thousands of students that go here. It's really hard to find where your fit is. And based on an assessment that I conducted on our program last year, over like 75-80% of students said that Michigan Esports was the first organization that they joined on campus.
Nice.
So to me, that's like, okay, we're doing something right. We can continue to do better, obviously, but what a great starting point, knowing that they entered this massive campus and didn't know where to go, but they chose us.
They found your door, which obviously they find something either that they relate to, that they gravitate to, or they obviously feel like they're welcomed and wanted somewhere right away, which, you know, I mean, I don't, I mean, obviously with you playing with your brother, but for me, as well as playing with my friends and my sister, obviously gaming goes way back and has some emotional tie to most gamers. I'm not going to say all gamers, but most gamers, there's an emotional tie. And so, like, when you say, you go to Michigan, you're a freshman on campus, you might be a little freaked out because it is a large campus, but guess what? Where are you going to go that's somewhere comfortable? Playing video games with people is a very comfortable spot and feels like home. So, I mean, why it doesn't surprise me, but that is a huge number. I mean, that is, you said, what, 70 to 80%?
Yeah.
That's wild.
That was the first thing they picked up. I was like, yeah.
I love that. I love that. Get in here. So we already kind of went through some of these questions, but we'll hit them up again just to see if there's more to cover. But what is Cybbi's goal for the kids in the program? Obviously, we know they're academic-based first. They're students first. Get your degree, and then we send them out into the world. But what are your goals for the kids in the program?
Yeah. So what's important for me with my students is, yes, I love the competition piece. I love just watching competition in general. So that's always really fun, and that's important. The other piece is to continue to develop just like more gaming recreationally in some way. Yeah. And see what that looks like. So that, I think, feeds into what I was talking about a little bit earlier of the assessment that I conducted on our program of finding out like demographics and who are we engaging with right now. Correct. And the numbers are tough. Oh yeah, it sure. seems to, it's slighted in the way that we see esports now, just heavily underrepresented identities in general. We need more of that in our program. So my goal in this next academic year is, we know those numbers, we know where we're starting at. How are we creating action steps to conquer that and to get more people involved that don't look the same, and how we are really working on that diversity piece, and also with the accessibility in mind as well. And knowing that we're inheriting students that have had a life before Michigan, right? 18 years sometimes, and whatever the case may be. So a lot of that is doing what we do best, which is education. So my goals for my students is to support them, to advocate for them, and to help educate them on not only like what we're about and why we do what we do, but just some of the things that you do learn in college that maybe you don't know how to articulate. Like I know when I was a student, I was learning things that I had no idea until after I graduated. But for me to be more intentional of, hey, you're learning skills of like how to manage your peers, which shows up in a job like this, or you're really adaptive and this is showing up for you in this way, and this is how you can apply it further on. So all of that to say, the goal for my students always will be to protect them and to give them an opportunity to show up as they are with the identities that they hold, and know that they're going to be taken care of and as safe as possible. Amen. The internet's crazy. The internet is scary. It can be used in so many cool ways, but we also know the challenges and the barriers that come with that.
I always reference now that I watched his special on Netflix, Bo Burnham's Welcome to the Internet. I was like, it is just so on par, especially with the kids that are, 2021 now. I was just like, this is exactly what the internet is and what it was made for. But it's not all bad. I mean, there's extremely good out of it. But like you were talking about with diversity and esports, I love it because esports really is the only sport where females and male, black, white, Indian, whatever it is, you can all play together and have a great time. And there's not, and there's just not any thought of differences or politicalness. It's just gaming, and you come together, you're friends, you do this, and it really teaches you a lot about different cultures and different people. And diversity in esports is something that I really think a lot of people don't a lot of people don't understand esports in general. But when you talk about diversity in esports, it gets even deeper and even better in most cases. Obviously with streaming and content and internet, that's a different road. But what I really like to see is that you guys are a step forward in that diversity of esports, because it is a massive thing. Women can play with men. They're just as good as the men. Anybody can play video games and be better than the next person. There's no labels, and we need to kill any labels that are developed, because those aren't 100% accurate at all. And that's what I love to hear. I love to hear it, Cybbi. You're doing it for everybody.
No pressure.
No pressure at all. First of all, I do have to say, before I get too far, you played traditional sports yourself, correct?
Yeah.
Does buckets stand for anything in your Twitter name? What's the buckets come from?
Oh, you think like I'm dropping buckets on the court?
I was just wondering. I didn't know. That's why I was asking.
There was like a point in my life where anything good that happened, I was like, yo, buckets, like,
yeah.
you know, or like if somebody did something cool, like who I am as a person is very high energy.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to support you and no matter what you do. So
buckets. I think
that name, that's where it came from. But yeah, I do have people ask me
I'm
like
throwing it in the repertoire. Yo, that's buckets right there. I'm nailing it. We're starting a trend. That's going on TikTok and everything.
Okay, cool.
But you do have a background in traditional sports and playing them, obviously, and so the competition does not just elude you by any means. You obviously know what a lot of these kids are. You know, their competition levels is just the same as everyone's competition levels. So I have to ask you this. I put this on here because I was just like, I was writing this rundown last week and I sent it to you way late. But I was just sitting here and I was thinking, I'm like, man, I am working more on esports right now than I am my 9-to-5 traditional job. Everyone always tells you, go out, get a job. But I'm working more in video games right now. And I had to stop and pinch myself and say, I'm writing a rundown for a podcast with the University of Michigan and Cybbi Barton. I was like, I got to ask her this question. How often do you stop and pinch yourself and say, esports? Like, how often do you stop and do that? And when you're like, I take it for granted. You know, I was just like, I'm working on video games right now.
Yeah.
And I was like, how often do you stop and say, I'm working with kids in video games right now?
I love that question. And I agree with you. Sometimes I am just in the swing of things and I have to take a second and say, wait a second. Baby Cybbi would be losing her mind right now if she knew what adult Cybbi was doing.
Right.
Yeah.
I definitely would never in my days back, playing Nintendo, Super Nintendo, Sega, PlayStation, N64. Yeah. I would never thought I'm working with video games, even creating video games or anything like that. I was like, I never ever thought about having a job in some esport or video game avenue. Yet here we are 20, 25 years later in the fact that I'm interviewing you about esports.
Yeah. And I'm getting interviewed by you about esports. Right? But like that's the thing. When we were younger, it was, our parents were like, get outside, go outside, get off video games. But there wasn't scholarships. There were programs at universities. It was a very clear end part of your career or, your involvement with gaming. And that was when you moved out of your house and moved into college or whatever. So
I'm not certain how old you are. I'm not going to ask you, but for me, born in 1985, I call myself the lost generation because we're not Generation X and we're not generation or millennials. I don't consider myself millennials. I still spent most of my life without internet.
Okay.
But the thing that it's so tough for me to kind of grasp and wrap my head around is the fact that, back in the day, there was competitions with video games, but it was in big cities and it was very minor. They might have held one once a year, but now we're in the realm of there's competitions every day.
Exactly.
That you have coaches, you have players, you have people broadcasting, you have people on production for esports, you have people that are doctors for esports, like sports psychologists, because gamers need those more than a lot of athletes. The psychology of gaming and the fatigue that it takes place with 6 to 8 hour sessions of practice and game, like it is wild to me to think 20 years. This is where we ended up when video games became on the internet, but just within the last 5 years, look how much more it's exploded.
Yeah,
so
you're totally right. Yeah, it's wild,
mind numbing. It's mind boggling. Let me tell you.
Truly. Yeah.
So now we get back into the normal questions here.
Sure.
I had to throw that one in there.
I love that. That's a great question. Yeah.
How do you recruit? How does Cybbi recruit kids, whether they come up to you and say, hey, I'm really interested, or do you look at other high schools around the area, or maybe there's semi-pros that you might say, hey, you need education, come on over here and play. How do you recruit?
Yeah, there are so many layers to this, and it can be as simple as, okay, we are recruiting. We have events coming up in the next 2 weeks because we start class next week of events of like how to get involved on campus and just throwing students into a million different ways. And so we show up in all those spaces and make ourselves accessible for questions and to tell students like what we're about and what we do and where we want to be. And so that's a very simple, that's easy
Right.
to do. We
Yep.
just show up and they come to us. And there's another piece that I'm excited to continue on. And like you were talking about, just different parts of the community. So we have a office, just like with Ann Arbor, the city of Ann Arbor.
Mm-hmm.
So potentially reaching out to them of like, let's host events with like our high school students, our high school system. And the University of Michigan will stream it, or we'll provide, you know, whatever we can provide. But I think that, because kids are playing video games at like 5 years old, right? So I think as soon as we can put ourselves in that place, or for people to understand or know the brand of Michigan Esports, that's going to help us recruit, maybe not right now, but it's going to in the future. So just continuing to pivot and put ourselves in that position, I think will be a really awesome way to get involved with the community, get involved with younger students, and, you know, providing that advocacy and that support and education in an earlier time frame, as opposed to like when we inherit those students later on.
Right. And I mean, it trickles down to like, I know when I always kind of associate a lot of these answers with how I've experienced things. And when I was in high school, we got a brand new hockey coach, and he started the program. But the thing was, we were a very small town with a very kind of small program, but no one had his program. So what he did was he always had camps with the younger programs, and his system trickled down. And that's eventually what esports, collegiate esports will do, is you'll see the systems and kind of esports trickle down into high school and, you know, middle school. And you'll see those kids start to pick up on what a lot of colleges are kind of set up for. But that's the thing, is that's what we're doing right now, is spreading awareness of esports, because a lot of people, especially to this day in Northern Michigan, doesn't know that it exists. They don't know that there's doors that these kids can walk through and get degrees in anything under the umbrella of video games. But at the same time, if they are good enough, they can go play and get the degree that they want in other aspects of it. But there's just so many different avenues, like we mentioned before, with esports. So it's just bringing awareness right now, and then everything will fall in place as we get, you know, a few years down the road, which leads me to my next question. What do you hope happens with collegiate esports? Do you see the NCAA stepping in? Do you see one game? Do you see a few games? I just don't know how this boils down, and I don't know if NCAA even steps in, but what do you see for collegiate esports in the next, 5 to 10 years?
What I know from NCAA, I think the last 2 years ago, they were like unanimous, no, we don't want any involvement. And I understand that a lot with like Title IX, or just how it's completely.
I understand.
It's all over the place. So what I hope to see with collegiate esports is some type of standardization in whatever way that looks like. We see all these different leagues popping up, and some of them make sense, but they're too expensive, or some of them are like still in their infancy stage. And it's like, how can, there's just a lot of uncertainty. So what I hope to see is we start to identify some of the leaders and be a part of a national governing body in some capacity.
That's actually a really good idea. I haven't heard that one yet. I mean, when you think about it, it makes sense to like, if you make a board of some of the smartest, brightest voices out there, obviously, that would be very helpful with NCAA, because when you think about it, NCAA probably doesn't know how to approach this just as much as, regular people who like esports. What is that? And I understand, I mean, there's a million titles. There's a million different games that you could have. There's a lot of red tape when it comes to NCAA and the companies that make these games, because you have to remember, you're technically becoming a third party then, which there's a lot of legal stuff with. But I'd never actually thought of a board, which would actually be, that'd be a great way.
Yeah. And like, there's a couple of them that exist right now in that way. But again, I think it's just at a smaller scale of what we want it to be. I just want to know when my students are participating in a tournament, like more than a couple of days in advance, but that's where it's at right now. It's like, hey, Cybbi, we're going to compete in this tournament tomorrow. And I'm like, okay, like fine, whatever, like we'll figure it out. So I think that'll be helpful. And I think also what I would like to see is, and I serve on a couple of volunteer roles that supports this, but creating resources for all programs, all institutions everywhere, that help people develop their esport programs. And like you said, not everybody knows about esports or the world. And I think unless you're playing video games your whole life, it's kind of hard to understand because of how massive it is. So seeing resources coming from that national governing body or whatever it looks like, so that we can help along all of the programs that may have people in the role that I'm in, and they're like, I've never played a video game in my life. How am I supposed to develop this program? So I think that's another really important thing of just accessible information, resources for people that no matter what step they're at in their journey, they know what the next one could be or should be, and to support them along the way.
Beautifully said. I like it. Like I said, it'll be interesting to see how it breaks down. But I mean, for the most part, I think, right now it's just up to you guys and the leagues that we have, Again,
no pressure.
No pressure, yeah. Cybbi again on her own.
Yeah. Tell my boss. Tell my boss.
All right, you're off the hot seat for questions, Cybbi. You did a wonderful job. But now we are going to ask you some fun questions.
Oh, okay.
And I promised her it is not going to be friendship ruining, but, you never know. No, I'm just kidding. I would never ruin our friendship, Cyb. See, we're friends now. I can call her
We're
Cyb.
best friends at this point.
Yeah, we're best friendies. All right, so we're going to ask you first.
Yeah.
In a special segment, I like to say, what's your setup look like? Because a lot of kids always want to know what's your setup look like. And hey, I will say you're the first guest that I've had on that has some headphones, a good mic, and it's great.
But you can't see anything else.
That's exactly it. So for me, you can see my computer's back there. Well, she can't right now, but she did earlier. But we got to know, what is Cybbi's setup, whether it's console or whether it's computer. But you said you play some games. What's your setup look like? All right. Are you PC or are you console?
I'm PC mostly, but I love the Switch.
Oh, yeah.
I love playing on the Switch.
The Switch is just so good. And I'm really excited for the Stream Deck. When it comes out, or the Steam Deck, not Stream Deck, I'm sorry. The Steam Deck, because you can take your Steam library wherever you go with PS4 graphics. I'm like, why not? I
will be so excited to see that too. Yeah.
It's just super expensive, but that's nor here nor there.
I know. Yeah. But as far as my computer setup, I don't have much to brag about other than I built this computer.
I mean, that's huge. First of all,
it turned on the first time. I did everything right the first time. So thank you. All my friends along the way, they were like, don't get discouraged if it doesn't turn on. I was like, wait, I see lights. It's working. my gaming PC, I basically had to build it from the ground up, and it didn't turn on the first time, but I forgot to plug something in, and then it turned on. So count it.
Yeah, it counted. But so what do you have in your PC?
Yeah, I've been upgrading things slowly. So I'm just at a GTX 1060 right now, which
that's a great card. That's a great card.
I'm able to play the games that I want to play.
Yep.
But other than that, it's not fancy. I got this keyboard. My sister bought it for me. She didn't know
what kind of keyboard is it.
It's a cheap Amazon keyboard.
Oh, that's fine.
That doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But I get to play what I want to play, knowing that I didn't spend a ton of money on my profile. So
what's your mouse?
Another hand-me-down, and I don't know what it is either. There's not a brand on here.
Hey,
this is not going to be good, Michael. I'm just going to tell you
that's fine. But you have to understand, there's going to be a lot of kids that also have similar setups. Not everybody can have top tier, top of the line setups all the time. You have to start somewhere.
That's what I'm saying. And even if this is all that I get, or this is the best I get, I'm able to play the games that I want to play.
Exactly.
And, what else matters?
Yeah, exactly. As long as Cybbi is having fun, it doesn't matter.
That's right.
I mean, to be honest with you, don't feel bad about it at all.
I don't. I truly don't.
A PC is still a PC.
It's a very a privileged thing that I have, and I have worked towards, and I know that that's not an opportunity for everybody.
And you built it, which is no easy feat. Thank you.
I'm so proud of myself. Yeah.
I'm happy that you're happy and proud for yourself, because it is a huge step. All right, so we're gonna do the next fun game, which is 10 questions. I used to say rapid fire questions, but the problem is the rapid fire just did not work because everybody wants to defend their answers. All right, so
rapid slow.
Rapid slow. If that's a thing. So favorite platform / console, first question.
All time?
Yep.
It's N64.
There you
N64.
go. It's a good one. I still got mine back here. It's N64 is kind of one of the I found with a lot of generations today, that's where they started. So a lot of kids nowadays are saying N64 because that's where they started. I have to agree, N64 is right up there because that is probably where I started my competitive bug with GoldenEye and like the 4-screen, and you would just have sleepovers and you'd stay up all night playing that. It was just so much fun. So great choice.
Okay, good.
Favorite game of all time?
That's like so it could be GoldenEye because that was the first game that I played with my brother. It could be like Zelda because I played that with my best friend, or it could be like Fortnite. That was the first time that I used voice comms with people and like got to meet people in that way. So that is an impossible. It's like asking what's your favorite movie.
It really is.
I can't tell you, but those are the highlights.
Spoiler alert, that question's on here too.
Oh my God. Okay, well, I've prepared for that question anyway.
What's your go-to snack while gaming? I know I've run into some people like myself, I don't eat while I game.
It's tough.
But I know some people like I interviewed Purdy Curdy, and I believe he's a pro for PUBG. I believe he said his favorite was Cheez-Its.
Cheez-Its are a good one.
Maybe or no, I think that was Cody at Northwood. He said Cheez-Its. But yeah, I mean, I know I don't have any, but is there any for you?
It depends, but either like popcorn because it's quick or something like gummy so that like I'm not getting salt all over my keyboard or like my desk. But
that's good thinking too.
That's pretty rare when I'm gaming, but I mean, that's what it is.
Number 4, favorite TV show / movie.
Okay, favorite movie. So I love movies. I go all the time. The best one that I love is called The Revenant with Leonardo DiCaprio.
Oh yeah, that's a great movie.
People know, like they ask like, oh, is that the one with the bear? Yeah, it's the one with the bear.
My buddy helped make that movie.
See, like that is why I love it so much, is like how it was made and like all of the work that went into it. The score is beautiful. The like acting, Leonardo DiCaprio is great. Like that's really good. I love the story. It's just such a good movie.
It's actually so realistic. If you haven't seen it yet, I'm not going to spoil it for you, but the bear scene is so realistic. It actually made my wife physically ill. She had to leave. Yeah,
I would have passed out if I wasn't prepared.
It's wild. But I was prepared because my buddy worked on that in particular scene. He was a graphic designer in LA, and they actually got an Academy Award for it. They actually had to. He helped make that scene. So I was kind of prepared. He told me what they were working on. Kyle did not know what they were working on, and so she was physically ill and had to leave the theater.
I don't blame it. Yeah.
That movie is good. My favorite movie though is Interstellar, just because of the same reasons.
I mean, music's beautiful in that too.
They literally gave him the movie, and Hans Zimmer scored it from start to finish. I don't know how you do that.
Are we surprised?
No, I'm not. But I don't know how you do it.
Incredible.
It's so good. Next one. Favorite guilty pleasure, Cybbi. Like, I'll be up front with you. I'll give you mine. Mine's like NSYNC and Backstreet Boys.
Okay.
I hate it. Like, growing up, I was supposed to hate them. You know, I was Eminem and hate the Backstreet Boys and boy bands, but way down deep, I love the boy bands, man.
We were just talking about rock music before all of this, and so this is a curveball.
It is a curveball. It is a big curveball. I love me some boy band music, like JT all day.
Yeah, I'm with you on some of like the bands that like you shouldn't like if you're a 30-plus-year-old, but I love it. I like, similar to like movies, like I will go and I will eat a large popcorn, and if I don't finish it, I take it home. Oh, like, that is a staple. I don't care. No matter what. That.
You and my wife fit right together. That's exactly what we do. We get a large popcorn, get it refilled just before the movie ends, and then take it home. Well, I don't eat a whole lot of the popcorn. She allows me to take a handful every now and then.
Not with Cybbi. No. Your hand would get slapped.
Yeah. No share. No popcorn for you. Favorite pro team of a traditional sport?
Favorite pro team of a traditional sport?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I guess maybe, but the U.S. women's national soccer team is they are incredible.
I love them
on and off the field.
I absolutely love how they brought a lot of people in the United States to pay attention to soccer, and then they also brought some issues to the front while people were paying attention to soccer.
Yeah.
I loved it. Use your platform. I don't care what people say. Use your platform.
Yeah,
It brought a lot of light to it, which I was like,
agree.
hats off. Way to go, girls.
Yeah.
Obviously, we see your puppy there in the background. Cat or dog person?
Oh, see, I love dogs. Honey's having a really great time back here, as you can tell.
She slowly maneuvered from the middle of the pillow bed.
She gets hot. Okay. Yeah. She gets hot and she just snakes away like a slug. Look at that.
So does Koopa.
But I do think cats act more like humans, you know? Like,
really?
Think about
so?
It. Yeah. I think cats do. Like, hey, I will come to you and talk to you when I want to.
That's true.
If I'm not around you, leave me alone. I just need you to feed me and like keep me safe, shelter, all that.
That's
and then,
true.
You know, I just think that's what I think, but I love dogs.
And my Newfoundland literally has no concept of a personal bubble. So he's always in your face every time you just sit down. Yeah, I get it now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I get it. First car. What was Cybbi's first car?
It was such a good one. It was my dad's Jeep Wrangler. So
nice.
I like took the top off the car all the time.
Cruise.
It was such a fun first car. It was a stick shift too, so I learned how to drive that.
Yeah.
But yeah, like the last day that I had it, the transmission just like
dropped right out of it, huh?
Dropped out in the middle of the busiest intersection in my town, and I was just like, "Wow, this is quite the way to go out."
That's a. You were in Texas at the time, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I just don't associate Jeep Wranglers with Texas.
Yeah, they usually, you know, when you're born in Texas, they give you a truck and then they say,
that's
good
true.
luck.
Yeah.
But yeah, they gave me a Jeep. No,
here's your truck.
Good luck.
In northern Michigan, obviously you see a lot of Jeeps. I'm a Jeep lover. I have a Jeep Patriot. I had a Jeep Cherokee as a kid. My first car, that was a 1989 Ford Probe, white, red interior, had the flip up lights.
Ooh, dang.
Woo. My grandma
serving
before
looks.
Me.
Michael,
yeah.
how do you?
It was great. I also ran the transmission in the ground on that one.
Yeah, it happens. Yeah.
All right, so here's one out of left field, Cyb.
Okay.
Would you rather be attacked by one horse-sized duck or 100 duck-sized horses?
This is insane.
Yeah.
The smaller ones.
So you're gonna go with 100 duck-sized horses?
Yeah. Because I think I would just like punt them. Like I just punt them to the moon.
I've seen a lot of people have gone with that. I've had a few people say the one duck, and then they'll horse whisper it. I was like, no.
No.
And then like some people said they'll just climb a tree and get away from the 100 duck-sized horses. So I was like, okay, that makes sense. I get that.
There's a tree. I hope there's a tree nearby.
Yeah,
that's all I can say.
I also feel like, well, they're horses. I was like, you could probably outrun them, but I was like, they're horses though. Probably might not be able to do that. Number 10. Last question, Cybbi. Anywhere in the world, where are you going?
I think it would have to be like Italy or Spain. And I think Spain is my answer. I had a student that graduated last year and she like didn't do anything with her major and moved to Spain. And so like we're friends on Instagram now. And I'm like, your life looks so fun. They have a lot of fun.
Yeah. I mean, Spain, there's a lot of history there. There's a lot of history. It's gorgeous too. I've had a lot of people have answered Japan. People have said Europe.
Oh yeah. That makes sense.
For me, it's Hawaii. I went there for my buddy's wedding, and I love Michigan in the 4 seasons. Like, don't get me wrong, fall's my favorite season. Love it. And if there was one place that I absolutely had to move, it'd be Hawaii. I mean, the water's 85 degrees. It's 90 during the day, 75 at night. There's no spiders. There's no bugs.
Right.
I was like, oh, the tropical life.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
But don't get me wrong.
Good one.
I don't want to go to Florida. I don't like the 65-degree ocean. I want the 85-degree ocean.
Give me something warmer. Yeah. I'm with you.
Fiji, where we could live in little huts on the water.
Yeah.
That'd be
don't
perfect.
need much.
Yeah.
Make sure
don't
you
need
got
much.
internet.
Yeah, internet. I need that for gaming.
And that's it. Yeah.
Cybbi Barton, you are now off the hot seat. Thank you so much for joining me. University of Michigan Esports, the director of esports and intramural programs. Cybbi Barton, thank you for joining me. You can find their Twitch, UMich Esports, and then also on Twitter at UMich Esports. But also, if you do need a little bit of a pickup, follow Cybbi on Twitter as well. Please don't.
At Cybbi B. That's it.
Her tweets just literally lift my spirits every time I see them. Make me laugh. I love it. Thank you, Cybbi, for being here. We'll catch up with you in the season, see how you guys are doing. But I am now friends with Cybbi. So that is the best thing.
Yeah, you are.
And thank you for being here, Cybbi. Appreciate it. And we'll talk to you later.
Sounds good. Thank you, Michael.